Well, hi there, Strata Loungers. It's Bill Whittle in the wreckage of the Stratosphere Lounge after the rhetoric bomb is hit. And this is episode 81 of the fabulous Stratosphere Lounge, otherwise known as part 3 of the Liberal Tough Questions edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. And we will be knocking them down fast today. The reason we're going to knock them down fast is because, number one, we got a lot of them. Number two, we're going to knock them down fast today because for the first time in memory, probably 30 shows at least, I would say, at least that long. Your host is in a feral mood. I think is probably the best way to describe how I'm feeling today. Feral. This is one of those days where every single damn thing that I had to do today didn't go well, and there's a lot of stuff that's been taking a lot longer than I would have liked as sort of the background music to the amusing day. But I have to tell you, one of the things that I am going to do when I have enough money to conquer the world is I'm going to find out who invented the automated phone message system that are used by airlines and banks, and I'm going to beat that person to death with that red, white, and blue baseball bat kindly submitted by a fan right there in the background. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go find every single phone bank that uses these things, and it's probably going to take me years. I'm going to smash those with that bat, too. Just that was the beginning. And it just went downhill from there. I mean, honestly, I was this close to just throwing the monitor through the window. I was this frustrated today. So, yeah, I think what's really part of it is I get to the point sometimes where I begin to realize just how vile our opponents are personally, just how vile they are. What vile people they are. Not just their philosophy, but how many of them are just personally vile, wretched, awful people. So we're going to just go ahead and knock them down as fast as we can today because I'm in the mood. So we're not going to have the normal kind of deep philosophical sort of background underpinning. Get these lights right, or else this iPhone's going to go through the wall too. I'm telling you, nothing is beyond salvation today in this room. Yeah, well, it's really been one of those days, weeks, months, and years. And thank you, Wild Goose. That's why they invented booze. That's spectacular. I should have some on hand. Now today, for part 3, we're just going to go clobbering through these things. And I'm sorry if they're not as thoughtful or delicate as they normally are, because I usually like being a thoughtful and delicate guy. But today, I got the clue bat against the wall, and I'm ready to use it. So. Here we go. Oh, one thing before I forget. Due to a little traveling, I was out of town the last 2 weeks. Had a great time on both trips. I had last week. I was in Charlotte, and I was with some friends of mine. I should tell you this. I'll bring it up again next week when I'm in a better mood. But I do want to say I caught up with some people who were friends. One guy especially is really not just a friend. He's like my dad. He's certainly my big brother anyway. Hadn't seen him in 22 years. And it was just the greatest thing. I miss him terribly already, and I had the best time. I think in the next week or two we have some pictures that we found that he had on a slide tray. He put a slide carousel, Kodak carousel on a slide projector, which is how we did all our media back in the days of the planetarium when I first met him. And there were slides of me when I was probably 14 years old, and I have to tell you, I saw a couple pictures of me working on some equipment, and I'll as soon as I get them, as soon as Phil sends them to me, I'm going to put them on the air because I'm fearless. There were a couple pictures of me at 14. I was a fairly cute-looking kid, I have to say, but honest to God, I look like I cut my own hair with pruning trimmers. And I actually think that at some point my mom must have said, "Do you want to use a mirror for that?" I said, "No, better by myself." And just unbelievable. But seriously, I have to tell you, there's some really cute pictures, and I do miss that trip very much. And the other, I miss those people very much. It was great to get back in touch with them. It's like I never left. And the second thing I'll say is that next week we'll have a big announcement for some work that's been going on behind the scenes by some really remarkable people concerning the show. And I would kind of promote it tonight, but it's not fully up yet. I think it'll be up next week. And besides, they deserve much better treatment and much better shout out than what they're likely to get tonight, because I'm just in a really I'm on my last nerve today. Okay, so anyway, with that said, thanks for the work you're doing back there behind the scenes, guys, and we'll get to you next week when we're in a better mood. So let's get through this. We've got like 4 or 5 pages of these things left, and I don't want to do a part 4. So let's get going, and then probably the faster we can knock them down, the better I like them. Louisa Anderson says, without government regulation, businesses would exploit workers and ruin the environment just for the love of money. Big corporations only care about money, not people. Why don't businesses care about people? That's a 2-part question. The first part is, without government regulation, businesses would exploit workers and ruin the environment just for the love of money. Part of that has some truth to it, which is why the way the left likes to argue everything is that they always like to take things to absolute madness. If you're in favor of guns, I guess you should be allowed to have your own nuclear weapons. If you are opposed to shutting down California's entire agricultural economy to save a fish this big, I suppose that means you just prefer that we just poured molten mercury down the throats of your children. Is that what you're saying, you rotten, awful conservatives? No. Liberals are not capable of gray reasoning or multi-value logic. They're only capable of this kind of childish sort of everything is great or everything sucks. So to answer the first part of your question, there are, in fact, important regulations that the government does provide that are necessary and that do a lot of good. And we've never said that there wasn't. And to say that we say that there wasn't is something that we call, in the world of rhetoric and discussion, a lie. It's a lie. Of course we believe in regulations. We believe in realistic regulations. I'm completely in favor of regulations on airline maintenance, for example. I'm not one of these people, and I'm not saying all libertarians are like this. I'm not saying most libertarians are like this. Some libertarians or objectivists will say that businessmen will patrol themselves because they don't want to be sued and they want to succeed in business. I think that's completely unrealistic. And I know most libertarians don't agree with that. But I'm in favor of regulations that affect the public safety in cases where the public is trusting somebody else to take care of their safety. If I get on a jet and it's got a company logo on the tail, I would like there to be regulations to make sure that that jet has been adequately maintained. I adequately maintain my airplane. I don't know that somebody else adequately maintains their airplane. And frankly, I don't care if that other person doesn't adequately maintain their own airplane, so long as it's only their airplane, that they're the only people flying their airplane. They want to fly an airplane that's never been maintained for 7 years. That's their business. I don't care. But if it turns out that it's for the public, yes, I'm in favor of airline maintenance regulations. I'm in favor of regulations that control the amount of toxics and poisons that go into the environment. Very, very important to do that. And all of these regulations, basically, they're fundamentally conservative regulations because the only people that go outside are conservatives. When liberals start talking about the environment, what do they know about the environment? They never leave outdoors. They've never been outdoors before, most of these people. So, yes, I am in favor of environmental regulations. I'm in favor of environmental regulations that prevent pouring toxic waste into rivers and so on and so on and so on. Why do businesses do that? They don't do it because they hate people. They do it because they can, because it's the easiest, cheapest way to do it. Well, okay, fair enough. But that should be stopped. We should have regulations in place for that. Let's get to the second part of this thing, because the second part is much more interesting to me. Big corporations only care about money, not people. Why don't businesses care about people? This is the thing that I don't know why we just not throw this back in their face every single time we hear this. Every single time we hear this, why don't we just throw this back at them? Businesses hate people. Businesses are people. What do you think a business is? If you listen to these idiots and these loons in Occupy Wall Street, these morons, they will tell you that corporations are running this and corporations are running that and corporations are evil and corporations are... It's like as if corporations were controlled by reptilian aliens from outer space. Some liberals believe this, actually. But if you take a person apart, you find out they're actually not reptilian aliens, they're actual human beings. A corporation is an assembly of human beings. I'm a corporation. I was a corporation, it was just me. I have an employee now besides me, but I'm a corporation. And everything is, look, Next time you run into a liberal who talks about evil corporations, evil, horrible corporations, you challenge them, because I guarantee you that every single thing that person likes in life is the result of a corporation. Their iPhone is a corporation. The network that carries their cell data is a corporation. Nike's a corporation. The clothes they wear are corporations. The Hero cameras that they use for their anti-corporate protests, they're all corporations. They go to work in cars that are made by corporations. Their buildings are owned by corporations. The beds they sleep on, the nice mattresses and the nice pillows are all manufactured by corporations. All of it is corporations. All of it. And people like Bill Maher, who hate corporations, and Michael Moore, who comes out against corporations, guess what? They're corporations. They're corporations too. They're corporations too. Michael Moore is a corporation. I tell you he is. Matt Damon is a corporation, and so is Bill Maher, and so are all of them. This idea that a corporation is some alien entity, it's like some foreign governor that's been imposed upon the human race by our insect overlords who live in the center of the galaxy, is absolutely nonsense. It's a group of people. And when you say, oh, these rich people that own Exxon, you know who owns Exxon? I own Exxon. You own Exxon. People own Exxon. If you have money in a retirement account, you probably own some Exxon. A company, a corporation, is a group of individuals who get together to accomplish a specific task. And that task is to provide a service in exchange for money, and ideally, they make more money than it costs to provide the service, because if they don't make a profit, then the service goes away. So you may be on your way to drive into Washington to bitch about the oil pipeline, but you are going to put gasoline in your car in order to get to Washington to complain about oil pipeline and carbon fuels and all the rest of the stuff these people complain about. And when you go home and you turn on your lights, that's all going to be run by fuels too. When you complain about a corporation making money, then what you're basically saying is, well, they shouldn't make any money. Well, if they don't make any money, they're not going to do it. And if they don't do it, you're not going to have any electricity, and you're not going to have any gasoline, you're not going to have any cars, you're not going to have anything. You're not going to have an iPhone, you're not going to have anything. You're going to have what the rest of the world had before corporations came along, which is you're going to have a thatched hut that you are going to have to make yourself. You're going to have a fire in the middle of the room where the smoke goes up through a hole, which the rain comes down through. And if you want something more than that, then you better get okay with the idea of a corporation. Because they tried living without corporations in the Soviet Union and nothing worked. There was no food, there was no electricity, there was no nothing. There was electricity, went on and off all the time. If it went out, too bad. Wait in line for a car, 10 years. Wait in line for an apartment, 20 years. This is the alternative to allowing people to get together to provide services in exchange for money. That's the alternative. There is no alternative. Every single thing in every single progressive's life that they bitch about every single day is a corporation, but every single thing that they like about their lives is a corporation. Everything in their life that they like is a corporation. Their tie-dyed shirts are provided to them by corporations. I guarantee you, they're certainly delivered by corporations. They're just such bloody hypocrites. They're such god-awful hypocrites. Awful people. Why don't businesses care about people? Where do you think people get their money from to buy their food? Where do you think people's food comes from? Their food comes from working in exchange for tokens which can buy food. If it weren't for businesses, these people wouldn't have jobs. If they didn't have jobs, they wouldn't have money. If they didn't have money, they wouldn't have food. Corporations provide not only the wealth of the world, but they also supply all of the essentials, the necessities of the world. And every time you take a corporation away and let a government do that, you get a lot less of it. The Soviet Union, with some of the most incredible farmland in the world in terms of the Ukraine and so on, these people couldn't even feed themselves. They couldn't even feed themselves because of their big brain philosophy, their big brain political philosophy. And so a socialist sits there and talks about how evil corporations are and can't get through their little dime-sized brains that if it's 4 o'clock in the morning and there's a sick calf in the barn and the calf doesn't belong to anybody, belongs to everybody equally, then no one is going to go out there and take care of that calf. No one. And so the calf dies. And so there is no calf. And then there's no more milk. And then there's no more cows. And then everybody goes without, but they go without together. See, that's the main thing. I just want to take away every single thing that a business provides for these losers and these crybabies and these envious, mean-spirited little lazy bastards who will not get up and work no matter what. I'd like to take every single thing that had a corporate structure away from their lives, every single thing, and they'd have nothing left. nothing left. They'd have nothing left, these idiots. Moving on.